Unlimited Blade Works.
Hey, what is up, you guys? This is Silver Fang, and today I'm back with another video. So today I'm gonna be reacting to a video called The Chord of Shirou Emiya. Now, I decided to do this video about Shirou because one of you guys told me that it was pretty interesting, and as you guys probably know, Fate Unlimited Blade Works, it's honestly my favorite Fate series thus far. It's right there. It's either Unlimited Blade Works or Zero, but I'm leaning more towards Unlimited Blade Works. Maybe after the Camelot movie comes out, I will change my mind because that movie's looking pretty dope right now. Or the Heaven's Feel movie 3, because the Heaven's Feel series, I feel like if it was made into an anime, it would have been a lot better. But I'll see what happens after the movie comes out and I get to see all three movies back to back, just because to see how the story goes. But the thing is, I feel like since they're releasing it in movies, I feel like the pacing is way too fast. But that's just my opinion. Maybe you guys who have read the novel might have a different opinion and think like the pacing is going pretty decent. But for me, I feel like it's moving a little fast. And mind you, I haven't read the novel, but you could just feel it. Like they trying to get through things quickly so they can end. I'm assuming it's so that they can end the movie in a certain way with a certain cliffhanger. So I feel like they're rushing through some stuff that if it was an animated series, then they wouldn't have to do those type of cuts or move the plot along so fast. But maybe after the Heaven's Feel movie 3 comes out and I'm able to see all three movies consecutively, maybe I'll get a different opinion. But as for now, I think it's moving fast. That's the only reason why I don't feel like it's better than Unlimited Blade Works. Now the animation for the movies, that's the good thing. I think they're sacrificing pacing, but the animation is fire. It's fire. I don't know if they would have been able to do that with the series. Movies have a bigger budget, they're shorter, so the animation looks gorgeous. Oh my god, that it's crazy. But Unlimited Blade Work had some pretty good animation as well. Not as good as the movies, but it was decent. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. It was pretty damn good, to be honest. So is it worth it to sacrifice pacing for animation? Maybe not. Right now it all depends on the third movie and how it's handled, because they have set up the climax in the past two movies. So if they do a good execution with the climax, then you could say well, it was worth it. The animation is fire, the ending was solid, and hopefully, because in every series, stuff starts getting good at the end, during the final episodes. That's where things start getting good. So maybe the pacing has been pretty fast in the past two movies, so that they could probably do the ending correctly and dedicate as much time as they have to the ending. So if they handle the climax correctly, then it should be perfect. If the climax is good, then it was worth it. because the animation is fire. So if the ending is good and the pacing in the ending is handled properly, then yes, it's worth it. But if not, if the third movie is also rushed and too fast paced, then for some of you it might be worth it. But for me, I'm more interested like in the way the story is told instead of animation. That's why like some of my favorite animes are not the new animes, but some of the old anime, like for example Yu Yu Hakusho, you know. and they don't have as good animation as some of the newer anime, but the story is told almost perfectly, to be honest, almost perfectly. And another one is Hunter x Hunter, the old Hunter x Hunter. That's also one of my favorite shows because it's because of the story. Like, I'm more of a story type of guy. Like, sure, the animation could be fire, and hell, I love me some good animation, but first, before that, is the way that the story's told. Then I will say animation, and depending on how many characters are in a series, then characterization. But first and foremost, for me, the most important thing is story. So hopefully they handle the ending correctly. Hopefully they don't go way too fast with it, because the other two have been pretty fast. So yeah, so I got off track, but this video is gonna be about the core of Shirou Emiya. I'm not sure what it is about exactly. I know they're gonna be talking about Shirou, but any video that's from Shirou, man, like, I don't know if they're gonna talk about Archer Emiya or is it just plain old Shirou, but either way, I'm all for it. So let's just go and jump right into the video to see what the video is about.
Something the majority of the Fate fandom can agree upon is that the main protagonist of Fate Stay Night, Shirou Emiya, is a very well done and beloved character. It helps that we have not one, not two, but 3 different stories to draw from just within the original visual novel in order to establish the main principles of the character involved. What I would like to posit here is that Shirou Emiya is fundamentally the same kind of person in all 3 routes of Fate Stay Night, as well as one additional story, Fate Callide Liner Oath Under Snow. This video will be an attempt to make my case. Now, quick disclaimer, I'm going to discuss spoilers at length for all 3 routes of Fate Stay Night, including the still-in-progress Heaven's Feel movie trilogy. I think it should also go without saying that I will be discussing spoilers for Oath Under Snow, and to a certain extent Fate Zero. I'm not going to talk about Callide Liner on the whole. I don't really like the show, and my longest bits of exposure to it were the movie and manga versions of Oath Under Snow. That being said, let's dive in. If I had to put my finger on one trait that really defines Shirou Emiya, it's friction. The primary thing that all versions of the character, besides like the main Callide one, have in common is that in some way their primary conflict stems from how they interact with the world contrasted against their ideals and ambitions. This friction between dreams and reality is, IMO, the most interesting thing about the character, and one of the best parts of the Fate series on the whole. A guideline that helped me when writing this video was setting up the 4 Shirou's on a sort of alignment chart D&D style. What you see on screen is said chart. Basically, all I did here is swap lawful, chaotic, good, and evil on this chart with 4 concepts related to Shirou: selfless, selfish, dreamer, and realist. Here I've placed Dean Shirou as a selfish dreamer, Unlimited Bladework Shirou as a selfless dreamer, Heaven's Feel Shirou as a selfless realist, and Oath Under Snow Shirou as a selfish realist. Now, I should specify. All 4 versions of Shirou are in some capacity heroes, and even though I am using the term selfish to describe 2 of them, I don't mean that in the capacity that they refuse to help others. What I mean is that these characters prefer to help the people they're closest to above all else, rather than indiscriminately lending their aid to humanity on the whole. One way in which we can explore these placements is with how each version's use of the Unlimited Bladework spell is treated in their route. Let's go through them one by one, starting with Dean. Here, Unlimited Bladeworks is used only once, during Archer's last stand against Heracles, and Shirou never learns to do anything besides some very simple projection of Caliburn and Avalon, and, if you count filler, Concho and Bakia. Because of this, Shirou is forced to rely very heavily on Saber in battle and for moral support, and in falling in love with her, finds a selfish goal that he wants to pursue. He's forced to eventually leave this love behind, letting Saber disappear so she can destroy the Holy Grail, and after this, Shirou continues to pursue his original dream of becoming a hero for the entire world. Here, Unlimited Blade Works is treated like a fleeting, unrealized dream, one that Shirou is far from earning by the end and that he'll have to discover the natural way like the archer he saw in his war. The Unlimited Blade Works route takes a different approach. In this story, Shirou is confronted head-on with the reality of what his dream will lead him to, but this happens in such a way that by the time he's forced to truly face his own demons at the hand of Archer, he has no one specific person he wants to fight for above anything else. True, this fight is technically to free Rin, but the stakes are ultimately far more personal than that. Shirou is quite literally confronted with the ideal version of himself that he's always dreamed of becoming. And because of this, he slowly unlocks exactly the kind of powers he needs to come into that eventual evolution. By the end of the series, he's gotten so skilled with his projection that when given a mana source greater than his own, he's even able to create the Unlimited Blade Works marble using nothing but his own knowledge of its construction. You could even argue his version here is more pure than Archer, since the landscape is so much less depressing than the one Archer produces. And before we move on to Heaven's Feel, I should point out that it's likely the entire reason Archer from UBW wanted to kill Shirou is because he was canonically from a very similar route to the Fate one. In turn, this would mean that as a selfish dreamer, he was nonetheless forced into the role of a selfless one, causing enormous amounts of dysphoria between what he wanted to become and what he eventually did. This version of Shirou was forged into the role of someone who fights for the greater good and the things he loves, and the reality that he'd eventually have to pick one acted as a slow burn, destroying his dreams over the course of countless battles as a guardian. It's only when going through Unlimited Blade Works Shirou's character arc vicariously that he's able to let go of this and continue to serve his purpose as a counter guardian without the previously mentioned dysphoria, since at the very least he was able to watch himself overcome that obstacle from the third person. Anyway, as for Heaven's Feel, this version of Shirou isn't really ever granted proper use of the reality marble, at least not the way the previous one was. In this round, Shirou gains an extremely direct pathway to using it through Archer's arm, with the only condition being that he'll have to take his training very slowly so the arm won't overtake him. Shirou, being Shirou, doesn't listen to this and tries to use the arm in order to protect people around him multiple times over before he could ever do so safely. Between Nine Lives Blade Works, projecting the Jewel Sword, fighting Saber Alter, and his final battle with CAREE, Shirou quickly exhausts his body's tolerance of the arm to the point that it literally transforms him into a walking mass of swords. The thing is, though, despite having put himself in a situation he shouldn't have been able to survive, thanks to Ilya's sacrifice at the end, he's given a new body and, in a way, rewarded for his heroism. In this story, Shirou never manages to reach the ideal that his Unlimited Blade Works self could, but despite all this, he does live a happy life. After all the fighting and pain is behind him, Shirou is able to reap the rewards of his choice to love Sakura. The thing is, Shirou may not have realized the full extent of being a hero, but he still undoubtedly played that role. While the story does use things like Sakura's backstory and Saber's transformation very well to illustrate the darker, far more personal ramifications and reveals associated with Shirou's decision to pick apart his own dream, in choosing only the pieces he wants from it, Shirou is still able to satisfy his desires to save others while protecting his loved ones. In other words, the choice's consequences are not very widespread, and at the end of the day, are possible to overcome. Sakura's pain was going to exist whether or not Shirou ever found out about it, and Saber Alter showed up before Shirou got Archer's arm. Despite individual losses, the things lost in Heaven's Feel are not crippling, and by the end of it, the one part of his body Shirou truly lost is returned to him, and stronger at that. I don't quite know if Shirou keeps Archer's arm once he gets his new body, or if his new one retains similar powers while resembling his first, but regardless, that one physical consequence is made totally moot by the end. Heaven's Feel may go to some dark places, but the route itself has one of the happiest endings of any Fate series to date. Why is that? Well, I think it boils down to a commonality between the original three stories. Let's not mince words here. Shirou is a privileged kid. He is a victim of lifelong trauma, and he has lost a lot by the time we meet him in Fate Stay Night, but I mean, just look at everything he still has. Shirou has a beautiful house all to himself, a surrogate sister in Taiga, magical powers, plenty of money, practical life skills, a fit body, a job. I mean, I'm not saying he's got it made, but he's not going to be struggling in the short term. The desperation involved in Shirou's actions always has to be driven by his desires and ideals, because he is not hurting for his current circumstances. Most Fate fans I've talked to seem to like Shirou a lot, and if I had to put down a hypothesis for why, I'd say it's because the very nature of Stay Night demanded he be a well-developed character, because trying to drive him using something like the need to survive or get back home from a foreign world would not have worked with Shirou's backstory. So the solution the VN takes is giving him a big personality. This does, however, come with a drawback, because you can never truly explore the extent of a character's nature until you've seen them really get desperate. So, the question is, what happens when you change the groundwork of the story? What happens when you change the mythical call to adventure that gives you a chance to bond with your lifelong crush and romance an attractive blonde girl into a horrifying, foreign ritual that claimed the life of the girl you love after someone directly involved kidnapped the only family you had left? Well, you get Oath Under Snow.
Oh, I have no idea what this is. Like, none.
The Shirou of this story is
God,
fundamentally
so
very
spoilers,
different
bro.
from his counterparts even from the very beginning. He never knew the kind, tired old man Kiritsugu became in Fate's Stay Night, and because Kiritsugu never was that man, Shirou never had Taiga in his life either. There's never any mention of him knowing Rin, and it seems like Julian and Sakura are his only real friends at school. He lives a life of secrecy and falsehoods, ones that never get the legitimization of things like his father-son bond with Kiritsugu, and even that relationship is much, much colder. I think this version does, on some level, still want to be a hero, but that desire is pushed back and repressed in the wake of the sheer, overpowering, frigid loneliness he lives through every day. I think it's pretty telling that Shirou even takes a page or two out of CAREE's book when he starts thinking about how he'll fight in the war. Heroism may be at the core of who Shirou is, but without that heartwarming moment of reassurance to his father from Fate Zero, it becomes hard for that fleeting dream to ever really find a place in his heart. Stay Night Shirou's largest hurdle to overcome was never loneliness, it was weakness. Oath Under Snow Shirou, on the other hand, isn't weak. His powers with the Archer card, and even for a time without it, are one-to-one with his heroic spirit, so overcoming personal weakness doesn't work as his motivation here. This Shirou only wants one thing: to take hold of something he loves, acknowledge that it's real, and not lose it. I think it's situationally appropriate here that Oath Under Snow Shirou fills the same spot on my alignment chart as a chaotic evil character would. That isn't to say that he's chaotic evil, but much like a character with that alignment, in order to make his story believable, the very basics of who he is needed to change. The core of Shirou Emiya is his unshakable desire to become his ideal, so in order for a version to exist that would openly mock that ideal for the sake of a snappy one-liner, that core needs to be shaken. In much the same way that Stay Night Shirou and Kiritsugu are deconstructions of heroism, Oath Under Snow is a deconstruction of Shirou, and that fascinates me.
Wow,
Throughout the whole of this story, Shirou uses Archer's
story
powers
sounds
with no
amazing.
restraint. He looses every tool in his arsenal, every technique he's learned, every last semblance of the very same chill that formed him into who he is. Oath Under Snow Shirou is cold. He barely ever smiles in battle, and in doing so, hardly even lets himself show negative emotion, rocketed into the
definitely
same
need to watch
emotional
that.
state as Archer in a tiny fraction of the time. Whereas Dean Shirou used Caliburn as a symbol of he and Saber's bond, Unlimited Blade Work Shirou used the marble with respect and admiration, and Heaven's Feel Shirou let his powers overwhelm him like a force of nature, Oath Under Snow Shirou uses his powers less like a weapon and more like a tool. His powers don't symbolize trust in Saber, or trust in his dream, or trust in Archer, but rather the fact that his isolation has driven him to using them without care or prejudice. He favors only the practical and never the sentimental, like deeming a goblet worse than a mug because the latter takes up less space. I think the most important reason why Shirou from Stay Night was able to achieve his dream in the end when Kiritsugu couldn't is because his exposure to heroism started with the man who saved him gently expressing his admiration of the idea. The fact that Shirou's dream came from a place of tender family memories and years of keeping his head in the clouds hardened his resolve enough that he was eventually able to endure the hardships that came from trying to achieve his ideals.
Thunder Snow.
Kiritsugu was different in that his exposure to heroism was detached and emotionless, completely free of romance and warmth. He was forced time and time again to destroy the things he loved for the sake of justice, from his father to Natalia to Iris Veal and even Emiya. His exposure to that dream was steeped in killing and loss, so he became unable to pursue that dream from any other lens than mindless bloodshed. Oath Under Snow Shirou is similar to Kiritsugu in that regard, and rightfully so, since the Kiritsugu who raised him was very much like the one from Fate Zero. Heroism to him was something shaped with a hard stare and a heart of stone, and Shirou couldn't measure up to that. His perception of what being a hero meant drove him away from that dream until he was ready to completely abandon it for the sake of protecting his own. With a self-proclaimed heart of glass, he never could have become what his father was, and that reality leaves him on his own yet again when the last family he has left is taken and his house is suddenly empty. Shirou is not a cold person. If you watch his conversation with Sakura, it's clear that he empathizes with her and wants that emotional connection, shown on full display with how wide his eyes go when he starts to realize he's going to lose her too. This could also be taken from his interactions with Miyu, and I'd be remiss not to mention that despite trying CAREE's weapons, he ultimately decides not to continue developing that style because it doesn't suit him. Shirou is a warm person adapted to a cold world, which is a take on his character we hadn't really seen in any other Fate series before. I know I've spent more time on this individual Shirou than any of the others, but that's kind of why Oath Under Snow is in the title. Honestly, I'd have a hard time pinpointing the core of Shirou going only off the 3 stories in the original VN, but Oath Under Snow makes it plain as day through the simple process of deconstruction. Because this version has so much taken away from him before his call to adventure, he goes down the complete opposite path of the version of him from Unlimited Blade Works, and yet both of these Shirous have access to their own versions of the reality marble. They're the only ones who do. One of them wanders forever without aim in a world of endless blades, and the other seeks tiny glimmers of warmth in a frozen horizon, somehow both embodying and being devoid of hope. The difference is between a man who rose from powerlessness to resolutely face solitude, and a man who crawled his way out from that oblivion so he wouldn't be alone anymore. So why do the 2 Shirous with the least in common of all 4 both have such similar powers by the end? If you ask me, their differences might actually be the reason. I said early on in this video that friction is the main defining trait of Shirou Emiya, and in my personal belief, that friction is crucial in establishing why each one stands what they do with the reality marble. UBW and Oath Under Snow Shirou both go through their trials and come out on the other end a changed person who's left their challenges behind. They may arrive at opposite endpoints, but they have to find who they are as well as they possibly can, and in doing so, they both gain the ability to conjure their own unique versions of Unlimited Blade Works, distinct even from Archer's. The reason we never see Dean or Heaven's Feel Shirou's versions of the marble is because they haven't gotten to that level of self-realization. You could make the argument that Fate Route Shirou's marble would be the same as Archer's, since that's who he's most similar to, but Heaven's Feel Shirou is still a mystery. Neither of those 2 versions reached quite so extreme an end to their adventure as the 2 who unlocked Unlimited Blade Works, which is almost certainly why they didn't. I don't think I'd be able to tell you which of these versions of Shirou is my favorite. I have a deep, personal connection to Unlimited Blade Works Shirou, but Oath Under Snow is such an important puzzle piece in understanding the character on the whole, and that gives me some serious bias toward it. What I will say is this: I think all 4 versions of Shirou are important to understanding one another. It's difficult to sympathize with Archer without knowing the life he led before Unlimited Blade Works. UBW Shirou is arguably the purest version of the character we have, Heaven's Feel shows us Shirou dipping his toe in the water when it comes to straying from his ideals, and Oath Under Snow picks him apart in such a thorough way that it shines a light on what all 3 other adaptations were trying to do. To be honest, I don't think I need a favorite, because despite their varying circumstances, I think they're all, at their core, the same person.
This was a pretty damn good video. It was. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I love this video. I'm definitely gonna check out his channel to see if I want to do any other videos from him. I'm not gonna talk too much about like Oath Thunder Snow Shirou because I haven't watched it yet. But I am gonna talk about Unlimited Blade Works Shirou, and thus far that Shirou has been my favorite. Granted, the Shirou from the Heaven's Feel movie hasn't been developed completely yet, so I'm pretty curious to see where he's gonna end up. But the Shirou from Unlimited Blade Works, it's not just Shirou, it's his whole interaction with Archer and Shirou together, where, for example, the fight between Archer and Shirou was not about who was stronger, because if Archer wanted to kill him immediately, I'm pretty sure that he could have. Like, Shirou was that weak in comparison to Archer at that moment. But this was more a battle of ideals, and the reason why Archer lost was because he couldn't completely 100%, he didn't believe in his ideals all the way through. Like, he had like this personality where he kind of came to grips with his own situation and the stuff that he had been forced to do, like to kill X amount of humans to save an X amount, and he was just frustrated with that, and he created this personality based on what he learned from Kiritsugu that pretty much tells him, no, you can't save everybody, it's impossible. And he kind of took that as fact, when after he died and saw what he was forced to do. And that's when Shirou Archer Emiya changed. It was after his death when he was forced to do those things one or two or three times. I don't even think it took that long for him to be in that state of mind. But this Archer Emiya is a character that when it's summoned to the Great War, he is not happy with who he is, and for that reason I don't think he completely accepted his fate 100%. As for now, he had no choice, and he just took what Kiritsugu said in the past. Because basically when he was talking to Shirou, he was pretty much quoting Kiritsugu word for word. So after being forced to do all those things, he pretty much took those words to heart. But that's not who he is in his core. And the reason why he lost to Shirou was because he couldn't accept his ideals the way Shirou had accepted his. Shirou was 100% like he was 100% like going to save everybody. It doesn't matter what anybody tells him. He was gonna try to find a way. It didn't matter how, but he was gonna find a way to do it. And he was not taking no for an answer. While Archer, sure, he had a completely different opinion, completely the opposite opinion, but he wasn't 100% sold on those ideals or those things that he created himself. He wasn't sold on that 100% because he remembers the person that he was when he was alive, and the fact that he was being forced to do these things, he was kind of in a state of depression, and instead of like trying to, because there is no way that he can get out of his contract with the counterforce, but he accepted his fate. Instead of being in denial, he decided to accept his fate and become that person that the force wanted him to be. But deep down inside, he does remember the person that he was when he accepted that contract and why he did it. And that's the reason, that was the struggle that he faced himself in that fight with Shirou, where Shirou was 100% sold on his ideals, and that's the reason why he lost. He because he didn't believe those things himself, he could have never convinced Shirou otherwise. He could have never done it because everything he said had no emotion behind it. Like yes, he said some facts. He laid down some facts to Shirou, but those things were just being spoken. I don't think when I was hearing that speech that he gave to Shirou, I didn't feel like he meant it. I didn't feel like that was what he truly believed in the end. Like I really don't think so. And after that fight with Shirou, we can see at the end that he actually kind of changed that personality a little bit, where yes, I'm now being forced to do all these things, but the reason why I did it, the reason why I accepted this contract was because he was like Shirou. And he kind of like, when he finally disappeared at the end of Unlimited Blade Works, he kind of had this like look in his eyes where okay, maybe he can do it, maybe he should go on this journey, maybe he'll reach a different path than I did, maybe, you know. So thus far, that Shirou has been my favorite, because even though he had a future version of himself telling him, you can't do this, this is impossible, I've tried, I've done this, and this is where I ended up, you can't do it. He had Shirou telling him those things, a version of himself that already lived through all of that, telling him that it's impossible, and yet Shirou still persists. Like, he believed in his ideals and nobody's gonna change his mind, and that's why I like that Shirou so much. And he's kind of similar a little bit to the Shirou from Stay Night, but the difference between that Shirou and this the Stay Night Shirou and Unlimited Blade Works Shirou is, like, in my personal opinion, he's a lot more useful. To be honest, like, that's the reason why I like this. Like, I feel this Shirou is my favorite. But from what I saw from Thunder Snow, I might like that Shirou a lot, because as you guys know, I do like Archer Emiya. Is my favorite servant. I could say he's my favorite character, and I would love to see both Thunder Snow, because it looks like Shirou started with the personality of, and I might be wrong about this because I haven't watched it yet, but it looks like Shirou in that series started off with the personality of Archer, and then by the end kind of became a version of Shirou, meaning you can say I could put it like this: if Archer Emiya started off as Shirou and then slowly became Archer Emiya, then I feel like the Shirou from Old Thunder Snow, from what I saw in the video, starts off as Archer Emiya and slowly transitions into a more Shirou-like character, you know? So I'm definitely gonna check that out. This video was awesome. I really liked it a lot. So thank you guys for recommending it. I really enjoy it. Please comment down below if there's anything you like me to know about Shirou from Old Thunder Snow. I think I'm gonna watch it tonight because, yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait. But yes, like, let me know who's your favorite version of Shirou, and tell me why, and tell me what do you think about the Shirou from Unlimited Blade Works. Was he, because a lot of people, including myself at the beginning, when I saw Unlimited Blade Works the first time, I kind of like thought of Shirou as a little naive, and at the beginning, because I saw Unlimited Blade Works right after Stay Night, and I had kind of a feel from that Shirou, and it kind of affected the way that I looked at the Shirou from Unlimited Blade Works, although they're almost a completely different character, except for the fact that they want to save everybody. But besides that, like, they're like almost completely different. So like, I kind of had like the opinion I had on that Shirou, which I think is my least favorite, the one from Stay Night, kind of affect the opinion that I created from the Shirou and Unlimited Blade Works. And I kind of, like, when I first watched Unlimited Blade Works, right, I didn't think this Shirou, like, I got mad at him all the time. I felt like he was a little bit naive and whatnot. But after watching Unlimited Blade Works a second time, I was able to take like a better look at Shirou, and after analyzing like the series and see who that Shirou was, and seeing that he was completely different from the other Shirou from Stay Night, which by the way is my least favorite, I kind of started liking this Shirou, and it became my favorite Shirou. thus far. Like I still need to see Old Thunder Snow and see the ending of Heaven's Feel. But as of right now, I don't think the Shirou from Heaven's Feel is gonna be my favorite. As of right now, I think it's not gonna beat Unlimited Blade Works Shirou, but Old Thunder Snow might. He might, because the way like his story is set up, he has a lot of growing to do. And as I said in the beginning of this video, I'm all about storytelling and how a character develops and where the story takes that character. So from somebody to start rock bottom like Shirou did, I'm really curious to see where he ends up in Old Thunder Snow. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch it tonight. So thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. And you see all that stuff back there? That's stuff that I've been doing. I've bought all that stuff for my kid who's on the way, and I've been really busy, really busy. So like, I know I'm not uploading content as frequently as I used to, but I am trying to get you guys at least 2 or 3 videos a week. So please hang in there. Things will go back to normal eventually, but like, my wife is almost about to give birth and she has like a lot of appointments, and I have a lot of stuff that I have to do, so I'm not able to upload as frequently, but I am trying to. So please hang in there. Everything's gonna go back to normal soon, hopefully. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it, and as I always say, have a nice day and catch you guys in the next one.